I got involved. Like, I think we all do our community-based things for our own reasons, and whether they're something we just fall into or something that we intentionally chose to do. Mine was an interesting story. I was working for Samsung Telecommunications, massive territory, traveling all over the world. Um, and I enjoyed it, but something was missing. And I was driving around one day thinking that there has to be more that I can do. Um, take the tools that I have and put them and help my more local community rather than a multi-billion-dollar global conglomerate. Um, so just thinking about it, driving, and about an hour later, I get a call from a headhunter representing the Red Cross. Now, I wasn't on Indeed, I wasn't actively looking for anything, and somehow the universe called, knew what I was thinking, and I said, that has to be a sign, and this is what I'm probably meant to do, and what I've been doing, all of these years, learning things, becoming better, and I can take those skills and move them to something that's going to help others. So that's my reason for what I do. Um, like Sally said, I oversee about 250 blood drives a year. Um, and every single one of them is important to me, because every single one of them is important to the patients who rely on the product that cannot be made. It has to be donated. There is no synthetic version of blood. So that's why I do what I do. And the mission is the reason that I continue to do what I do and deal with a lot of stresses and um, 7-day weeks and 12-hour days. And but I know when I look in the mirror that I am helping my community, and I'm helping people every day, and I can feel proud about that, more so than lining the pockets of a corporation. So that's a little bit about my impetus for getting involved in community-based nonprofit. And like I said, we all probably have our own little story as to why we're here today. Um, and I'm sure there's some great ones too. So, but just in general, just to go back to the blood product itself, and I'm not going to give a master class on it, because I do want to get into the actual drive that we will be doing. But every 2 seconds, somebody in the United States needs blood. 1 pint of blood can save up to, well, we've changed our wording. 1 pint of blood can positively impact up to 3 lives. Blood has a shelf life of 42 days. So we don't generally run into an issue in Vermont, because we're a small state, because we can only collect so much. But it would get thrown out or sent for lab experiments past 42 days. The great thing about our state, one of the many great things about our state, is that because we are small, everything that we collect stays in state, with the exception of a natural disaster that would require it to leave. The majority of blood that we collect in our state goes to UVM Medical Center, as the largest hospital in the state, and the rest is divvied up between the rest of the hospitals and medical centers throughout the state of Vermont. So when, yes, sir. Yep. So I was saying that the majority of blood does stay within the state. So we are literally helping our own community, our neighbors, could be our friends, our family. You don't know when you're going to need it. The unfortunate thing is that only a very small percentage of people do donate. About 38% of the country is eligible to donate after deferrals and exemptions and such. Only about 10% do. So that leaves us at about 3.8% of the population of the United States who does actually donate blood. I cannot for an exemption as well, some travel that I did in my youth that is still kind of antiquated, that you spent time in Europe in the 80s and you cannot donate. But that's in the process of being changed. But as I say to other people all the time, if you don't donate, if you can't donate, you're against it for whatever reason, do something to help. And that's what we're doing here together. So we are helping. So I never pressure anybody to actually donate. It's not, that's not what we're here to do. We try to educate and give them reasons to donate, but it's certainly not going to pressure anybody into it. So in terms of the blood itself, to maintain a stable supply, we need to collect almost 13,000 pints of blood a day in the United States. That's spread over about 2,500 hospitals. During COVID, we took a big hit as well because of cancellations. We had up to 1,000 canceled drives per day. I know my life was turned upside down. March 13th was a Sunday, 2020. And I'm running a blood drive the next day at a brewery in St. Albans. We have about 75 people signed up. It's a Sunday night. Drives on Monday, starts at noon, and I get a call from the brewery. Because of COVID, we're canceling. We don't have the option to just cancel a drive. So I had to find a replacement in a very short amount of time. A very generous church up there decided to help us late that morning. I was able to transfer over most of the people, and we collected about 45 units as opposed to the 60 or 70 that we were hoping for, but still. And that was the beginning, and it never got easier from there. Every day it was something, but hopefully that's in the rearview mirror. So let's talk about the drive itself that we're going to be partnering on. So it will be at the Williston Church of the Nazarene. So that is the church on 2A. It is the one right across from the Restore. Yes, exactly. And they just put in a brand new gym. So it's a really ideal facility for blood drives. We do have a number of different size and outlet and HIPAA requirements and FDA requirements that we have to follow. And this one, gyms are always ideal. So it's a great spot. Pastor Philip Smith is the pastor over there, and he's a really good guy, and he just wants to help. He said, I have this great space, and we just want to help the community in other ways. At about the same time, Sally and I were talking about trying to find another place in Williston. It wasn't coming to fruition as quickly as we'd like. So I thought, hey, what a great partnership. It is in Williston. You guys serve that community. Let's put the two heads together and make one. So we're really excited about it. It is Wednesday, September 28th. And it will go from 10 to 3. That generally puts us there at around 9. We will be leaving by around 4:30 or 5. So it's generally an 8-hour day for our collections team for a typical drive. So in terms of how can we get donors, there are a number of different ways. The first and foremost is going to be just your simple poster. Poster does have a QR code. People can scan it and it goes right to the appointment sheet, which is, I find, very helpful. It's a fairly new feature as we are completely behind the times technologically at the Red Cross. But it is a nice feature. So, generally when I work with groups, schools, things like that, I always like to find out how you are organized, how many people might be interested in physically helping. And the bulk of the work for a blood drive is not the drive itself. The bulk of the work is leading up to it, making sure that we have the sleeves in the door. So that's really where the emphasis comes in. Obviously, the day of the drive, it is important. We supply our own volunteers or volunteer. But if anybody wants to help out the day of as well, we can always find things for people to do. We could train you on how to register so that as we, hopefully do more of these in the future, we don't need our own volunteer, and you can help out with that as well. It's pretty simple. But I generally recommend, not putting all the load on one person, splitting up into, smaller committees, if you will. Have a few people, go out into the community and go business to business and see if we can put some posters up in windows. Take some people who may be a little stronger in social media. And we have digital assets. We have social media posters for Facebook, for Instagram, for LinkedIn, that are already formatted. They just need to get uploaded and sent out. So, those are a few really easy ways of doing it. We also supply you with an electronic poster, which has a direct link to the appointment schedule. Excuse me. And that's great for sending out mass emails. So if you had a database of any kind that you can send it out, just pop that on. That's all they need to see. Click on the link, boom, done. So that's the thumbnail sketch of it. I guess what questions might you guys have that we can move into the right direction? Yes, sir.
How do you know if you're qualified to donate blood? So what are the
So to start, everybody's qualified, unless you are currently on medications, and there's a specific medication list where you would automatically be deferred. If you have a low iron, you would get deferred. If you if you spent time in Europe in the 80s and may have mad cow disease and don't know it yet, then you would be deferred.
What years were they?
It was the mid 80s.
Just for having been there?
If you've been there for 3 months or longer. There are deferrals all the time for travel, and that list changes daily. There are some places that are a little bit more common as a deferral or consistent deferral. Places that have that tend to have malaria. So many places in Africa are often deferred. Yes.
Isn't most of the information on the website?
It is.
Like,
Everything is on the
yeah.
website. So if you just put in Red Cross travel, it'll give you the updated list. Yes, ma'am.
Can I just follow up on that?
Yes.
In terms of the process, I mean, you mentioned some things are antiquated, and I know that, there's been a lot of attention about gay men aren't allowed to
Certainly.
give blood, and that really is, I mean, it's actually kind of a justice issue as well,
It's an FDA thing. We are actually
That's the FDA.
currently running a study, an advanced study, in conjunction with the FDA, to try to get that removed. It is nothing that we support. It is something that we have to follow as an FDA guideline. But we are pushing that envelope as best as we can in Washington. And as we speak, there is an advanced study that is being performed and tested. And hopefully there will be changes to that soon.
Great.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea when the Europe in the eighties thing is gonna say bye-bye, or in the UK from 83 to 84.
Yeah,
I first discovered I couldn't give blood when we tried to give blood after 9/11.
right, right. That is another one that's being talked through. Nothing moves fast bureaucratically along those lines. But I am hoping personally that can get changed pretty soon. It's been something that we've, heard that they are working through for about 2 years now. So, yeah. So maybe 5 years from now, it'll be done. Yes, ma'am.
One of the points that you made about the restrictions that you have that don't necessarily come from the Red Cross, but they come from the feds and everything. In 1984, my son was nearly killed in a very bad accident. And I remember him coming in and asking me to give him blood transfusion.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when AIDS was just starting to be known. And I remember asking him first, can you guarantee me that this blood that you're being given will not contain that? And they said the only thing we can guarantee is that he won't live. He doesn't have to here. So many times people think, well, I just give blood, that's all, for volunteer. But I can't think of anything that's more life affirming than that. I have heard that there's some kind of medicine among 7 million that are being advertised all the time on the TV. And one of them is for AIDS patients. And it indicates that if you then can't trace that, if you're taking that, wouldn't that kind of
Yeah, so I know exactly what you're talking about. My boss and I actually had this conversation when we started seeing those HIV ads. Basically, if somebody is HIV positive and try to donate, why they would do that, I don't know. And it's not traceable, then it would probably go into the system. There is no way for us to test for that because it is not traceable. It's
by now, that would free somebody from giving blood. But it's not.
no, unfortunately not. Unfortunately
And
not.
you only use one size needle. I can't give blood.
There actually are 2 different size needles depending on the procedure that you're doing.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I gave given blood off and then I haven't for a couple of years. And my wife and I both went in 2 weeks ago and they refused both of us because they couldn't find the vein. Now, I've still got fingers, I've still got an arm. Is there something I can do besides red dye, to help? I appreciate the fact that I have had my arm turned black and blue from here to here
Sure.
at various non-experienced
Phlebotomist.
Thank you. I
Yes.
have other words that I could use.
Yeah.
Which company. But these people were nice enough to say before they started fishing that we just can't find it. Is it just a sign of age that my veins are disappearing or?
I've
what?
never heard of it as such. One of the
They said drink water.
Yeah.
Okay, I've increased drinking a lot of water.
yeah, that's part of my guess, part of what went on there too is that we've had like every other company in the world or in the country, we've had a lot of staffing issues. So many of our staff are very new
Yeah, I appreciate
and
that.
not
I-
experienced enough.
Back in my head, I said, maybe this person just doesn't quite dare. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. But I was wondering if there was something, I do appreciate the fact, I have a relatively non-common blood type, and I appreciate the fact that I should get my own supply in there every 45 minutes. That's it. Just in case,
Yeah, absolutely.
I know, but it's far enough out. I mean, it's not as if,
It has to be 8 weeks.
well, we had this appointment. I didn't.
Anyway.
quart of water every day and scheduled for the 28th of September.
Okay.
Because I've already read the whole Club the Riot Act. I expect to see you all the day after at the Rotary meeting with a
With a bandage.
bandage on your arm.
Yeah, well, I fully plan on going. That's why I'm trying to figure out how I can get there and not have to
Well,
have them apologize for having them to do it again,
well,
so.
it's been an awful lot of water, and
Okay.
hopefully they'll have more experienced phlebotomists that will more than happy to take it.
All right.
Yeah, the phlebotomists we have on the road are more experienced, and there's always a team leader who doesn't draw just overseas, but if there are issues, then the team leader, who is many years in the making,
Yeah.
will come over and assist. So
Okay.
we should be okay.
I think for me, when it comes to a marketing campaign, just what you said, that there's no synthetic version for blood. That right there is all everybody has to hear to know the necessity.
Yeah, but many times, very much like her, people don't think about it until it affects them personally. The main reason that people say that they've never donated blood, anybody want to guess? Afraid of needles is number 2, believe it or not. Number 1, nobody ever asked. Yep. 90% of the people who've been asked that question, the answer is, I've never been asked. So, I like to go out and ask.
So a lot of us started giving after 9/11.
Sure.
And my husband and I were giving every 8 to 10 weeks until the pandemic hit. And then every time we scheduled, we can't.
Well, I just give the story as to why.
It got very discouraging.
Yeah.
We stopped. But I'm hoping that this is going to enable us to start up again.
Yep.
And if it goes well, our Rotary Club could hold a donation every 8 to 10 weeks over at Church of the Nazarene and become a regular thing for all of us.
Yep.
So I really hope that you all think about if you're eligible, and if you don't know if you're eligible, go on the website. It lists all of those drugs. If you're on a chronic anticoagulation, you won't likely be able to give. There's certain diseases, all of which are strange, babesiosis.
Yeah.
I don't know if Lyme is a contraindication, but there's a form of Lyme.
Yes, Lyme is a automatic deferral.
People don't know that they have it.
It's true.
So did they take the blood? Did they test the blood after or?
All blood is tested. So what we do is we collect it. We have our own lab where it gets processed. We send it down to Dedham, Massachusetts, where the major lab is on the East Coast. Everything gets tested, gets sent back up to us, and we ship it to the hospitals.
And
Yeah,
you would get notified if there was something wrong with it.
that is correct. Yep. We have an app just called the Blood Donor app. And on that, it will have all of those. It will tell you your history, if there was anything in your blood. What's also great about that app is you can schedule your appointments directly through it. But the coolest thing, in my opinion, is that it gives you your blood journey. So it tells you who your blood went to, not by name, but by ailment. And how you helped, somebody with a transfusion, for instance.
And if you give blood, if you schedule online, you'll get an email that tells you where your blood went.
Right.
I need to be excused because it says
Yes, sir.
from January 1st, 1980 through December 31st, 1996. If you spent a cumulative time of 3 months or more in the UK, I lived in the UK from 1991. You'll just have to work the door.
Yes, sir.
I can put a Band-Aid on.
We're a Band-Aid.
That's right, we're.
I'm gonna wear my Band-Aid.
Right. Andy, you had a question.
So that's really just a comment, and I know things have changed a lot since back in the day, but the reason I've always given blood, and maybe one of the reasons I always vote, is I went with my parents. And I saw them do it, and it became me. And I don't know that kids are allowed in blood drives anymore, or I don't know if you can do it in school. But if there are ways to, emulate that, so we get kids to know that we get kids, it's a learned behavior, it's observed, and it becomes cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So during the pandemic, kids were not allowed in. They are once again allowed in. I spent a lot of my time concentrating on the educational sector to get those high school kids to start donating. We need that bench strength because our donor base is on the older side and for the most part. And it will be really terrible if we don't get the younger generation in. I also work with as young as elementary schools on programs called Pint-Sized Heroes, where they do put the pressure on their parents to go and donate at their, elementary school. Yep, and that's a wonderful point, because that really is a great way to get them involved, and then they look forward to when they're in high school and they could start donating themselves. And yeah, it is 16 with parental consent, 17 without. Yes.
Was that your question, Elizabeth? Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank
And
you.
there are size, height and weight requirements as well for people under 18.
Thank you, Brad, very much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. Yep. Yep.
And we'll contact you about some social media stuff.
Yes.
Um,
What I sent you last week and said to hold on to, or a couple weeks ago. I'll
Sure.
send it again.
Yeah, I got it. So so to thank you for coming and speaking to us, we're going to make a donation to the mentoring program at Williston Central School. And I'm going to ask you if you would pick a ticket and read the last three numbers.
And it is 793.
That's me.
There you go. Ding, 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 ding.
See that for all those games? And now our Sergeant at Arms.
But I'm sure that, unless you consider these weird, out of weird socks. Not too weird, a little weird. But I'm gonna try to replenish my store of weird socks. So I wanted to start things off. I have one sad fine to pay, and that's I'm sure I'm not going to get a lot of sympathy for this one, but it appears the New York Yankees are engaged in an epic collapse.